And so you'll see here now, Claude has sent that email. Let's go into our inbox and you'll see here that it got sent from one of my aliases to another alias, and then we'll respond. And you'll see here when we respond, we can set the default up so that we can send it from this email, but then we'll be able to send that email back from the exact alias. In the last few videos, we set up this website here with our custom domain. And if you go to the previous video, you can watch and see how to set that up. And today we're gonna figure out how to set that up to receive and send emails using ImprovMX, as you'll see here. And then this video, we're gonna set up that same custom domain so that you can send and receive emails. So to explain a little bit what's going on, one way you can think about this is that you have one address, that one custom domain that you have, and then you have two roads from that. The two roads that we have is the incoming route, which is we're gonna call, in this case, the MX. And then we have the outgoing route, which is the second road that we have, which is SMTP. So the incoming route essentially tells the internet which service accepts mails from our custom domain that we set up, while the outgoing route, it is the service that your mail app uses to send. While oftentimes we can just get one service that does both, there are not that many services that provide both for free. And some of them that do, that we'll also talk about setting it up later in this video as well, they might have data centers that provide that free service that don't have a high reputation, and therefore your emails might go into spam. But because of that, if we have not high usage, you can split up to two free services, and I've used both extensively and they both have good reputation. And ImprovMX is one of them, which forwards our incoming mail, but it doesn't include any free SMTP sends. And that's why we're bringing the other service in, which is SMTP to go free, which allows us to send outgoing mail, but it doesn't give us an inbox. But one of the other advantages we'll talk about later in this video is if you do use Gmail with these two services, you can enable yourself to have your agent manage both sending and receiving emails with your main Gmail account or the alias that you set up with the custom domain. The one thing you might not know is in order to receive emails, you can only point it at one service. And so you can't set it up where you receive emails in multiple locations, such as your Gmail, a different mailbox, such as Zoho, which we'll talk about later. But with outgoing mail, you can send it from multiple places. So we'll set that up with Gmail as an alias, as well as Zoho as another one. But you can also link up your custom domain to a lot of other services. And for the people who don't really use their custom domain email that frequently, like myself, I just prefer the free option. And we need to set up ImprovMX first so that we can receive emails from that custom domain that you set up, as well as a range of aliases that you can assign. And then secondly from that is once we have that email, we can use it to sign up for SMTP to go. But with your custom domain, you do have options. And so you can kind of go into here and see the name server and DNS. And down here, if you wanted to manually set it up, you can do the advanced DNS, which we went through in the past video. And then we also went very briefly over it into if you wanted to have your agent do that for you, you would basically use the API manager, set up your API, set it with 1Password. I have a few documents on how to do that there. And then once you do that, we're gonna go through now, let's go into ImprovMX. So this website here will allow you to forward emails to your custom domain, and you'll create an account, and I already created my account here. So we'll log in, and then you'll see here that once you log in, you can also set this up manually and follow the instructions there, or you can set up an API key. And I've already set up an API key here as well. So the one thing to note is once you start setting up 1Password with its dedicated service account and a dedicated vault, you can have a least privilege account so that the agent can only access what it needs to manage your specific accounts for you. And so because we want to lean on agents more to do more of the work for us, it's very useful to go ahead and set up that API for Spaceship if you haven't already, as well as ImprovMX. And so I'm going to go through that video today to show you how to do that. And so I'll just start up an agent here to kind of get the ball rolling. And then in the last few videos, we've also set it up so that you can set up voice as well. So then here I'll basically say, hey Claude, can you set up ImprovMX with this custom domain I have in Spaceship? And this is the domain that I have and I want to use. Can you set it up with andytran.cc? If you use Spaceship API and the skill we have in this project, you're able to use that, but also look in 1Password. I also have my ImprovMX API in there as well. If you look in the vault there, can you set that up so that I can forward the emails directly to my inbox for that? And then from there, we use option W, which is the shortcut for the free voice to text app. You can set that up on any Mac if you already use that. And you'll see here that the voice to text is not always going to be accurate. And so you'll see here, they can look through this. We're going to wait a little bit and just watch it work. And once it finishes, you can kind of see it self-correct itself. And you'll see here, it figured out that the domain that was transcribed through the voice transcript got mixed up, and so now it's using the right one. And so you'll see here, now that we've set this up, it should forward ourselves the email that we set up with this custom domain. And so actually now let's go ahead and test that out. Before we test that out, a useful thing that we can actually do is we can set up another CLI, another tool that we can use. And you don't necessarily need this if you're already using some other ones, but this will just help you streamline your CLI setup with Agent Browser, which we've talked about a few times already. And so I'll go back to the terminal and I'll basically ask Claude, hey Claude, can you help me install this, set it up so that we can use my current Gmail and GCP accounts with Agent Browser to set this up. And then we'll send that off and then Claude will basically do that. And so here we'll wait again to let Claude do that. We could have technically set up a separate agent to do that in parallel. So actually, if you're setting this up, you can kind of have two agents side by side, set that up, and then you'll see here it installed that. It's now helping us set that up. And then once that sets that up for us, I'll show you what we can do, because then we can actually run this end to end. And here you'll see that the agent, because I have 1Password set up, the agent can now set this up with Agent Browser in the same way we set it up previously. And GCP is quite confusing sometimes to use. You can also do this through manually, and you can skip this entire chapter of us setting this up. And I'll leave a badge here so you can see what timestamp to jump to, as well as having the timestamp on the description. And so you'll see here, in the same way we had in the last video where they used Agent Browser to do another headed Chrome profile with CDP, we'll ask it to use 1Password again, because I set it up already this way. So, hey Claude, can you use 1Password to fill that detailed in for me and automatically sign in as well? And then from that, we'll do another voice transcription there. And then Claude should be able to set that up so that we can see that side by side. And again, here in the same way, the last video, we've already set up in 1Password our 2FA. And you'll see here that the agent has already went through this. I'm just gonna skip some of this stuff. And now you'll see that Claude is in our Google Cloud platform and setting up our project so we can set up the CLI tool that will allow us to use Gmail from the terminal. And in a previous video, we've used GWS, but for this one, I set up a new CLI just to help streamline multiple profiles, as well as other features such as this automated Agent Browser setup. And then in a future video, we'll also be able to use this to set up other GCP API that will allow us to do this much more easily for any other GCP setup. And oftentimes an agent might take 5 to 10 minutes. And so this is why it's useful to set up multiple agents that run in parallel. And going back to here, you can see the agent just going through the authentication workflow with GCP. And this is all secure because we're working within our own GCP account. If you have any questions about what's happening, it's good to ask your agent of that. And here we're setting it up with Google Slides, Google Docs, Google Sheets. And this specific CLI here will just have very basic commands, but the main thing here is it will just allow you to manage your Google Drive, Google Calendar, Google Mail, and set that up in a much more easy way for people unfamiliar with GCP or any cloud provider. So we can kind of go back and see now if this worked out. And so now I'm going to ask the agent to use this. Hey Claude, now that we have the CLI set up, can you use the CLI to test out this email by sending an email to that alias that we just set up? Let's send it to hello@andytran.cc from our Gmail that we just set up, and check and see if we actually got that email or not. And then from that, you can kind of now see this all works end to end. And so now, because we installed that skill that is bundled with the CLI, the tool, the skill of how to use it will now live with that tool and the CLI, and the agent can now just smoke test this end to end. And here you'll see that it got queued and it was successfully forwarded to our Gmail. And so actually, let's just go in that and see what showed up. And so I'm going to go into Gmail, and now we can go and set up our sending the email. And so now that we have this here, I'm going to create a new account, and I'm going to use the free plan because that's all we really need. And here you'll need a work email. And since we just set up that custom email receiving, we can set up this email now with that. And so we'll use the same session here, and we'll basically tell Claude, hey Claude, can you use the same agent browser CDP headed process to create a new account and use this email now in order for us to sign up a new account here? And can you do this end to end for me? And then there will be a place where we need my phone number, and at that place, can you pause and I'll enter my phone number in and do the 2FA, and then from that you can continue and store all of our credentials in 1Password. And then from that, we'll send that off again, let that start working, and then we'll again see it working side by side. And so I'm gonna move this side by side, and then let's watch the agent do this again here. And so now we'll see this headed browser again, and this is kind of compounding on itself. The more you get used to a agent doing a lot of the stuff on your behalf, it'll be easier for them to automate things, and you just let it run 5 to 10 minutes. And so here we'll have it run in the same way. And here you'll see the agent entering in that new alias and that email that we set up. And usually the agent will figure this out, but I'll just streamline this a little bit and just click it for the agent, and I'll let them know, can you fill in the next section now and store it in 1Password? And here you'll see that the agent is entering this in, and I will enter my phone number in, and then I will go through 2FA and we'll see what happens after that. So I filled it out, so I'm gonna tell Claude to continue. Hey Claude, I finished the 2FA. Can you now continue and set it up end to end for me now? So you can send emails for free, receive emails for free from the custom domain. And here now Claude is activating my account and going to the dashboard so that we can actually set up a verifier. So we can set up a verified sender. And here Claude is going to take a while, but it got what it needed from SMTP2Go, the records for the CNAME, and it needs to add that to Spaceship. Or you can also set this up yourself if you want to learn what's happening behind the scenes. Another thing you can do as well is you can also just work with Claude and do it side by side, where you click on things and it just tells you what to click if you really wanted to learn or make things go a little bit faster. Now that Claude is getting close to the end about creating a SMTP user and setting that up in 1Password, I'm also going to let Claude know to set up this as an alias in Gmail so we can send it as well. Hey Claude, can you also set this up as an alias in Gmail so we can send email on this alias, and then we can test it with Googly as well? And then now Claude will be able to send and receive emails from our custom domain, and then also be able to use our new tool and CLI to send emails on both our custom domain or just our default Gmail account. And there's a lot of other, let's say, MCPs that integrate with Gmail that you can use your Gmail for. But when you need any custom functionality and features such as this, oftentimes you might need a CLI for that. I'm not sure if they added that to the MCP. One of the reasons why a CLI can often be more powerful as well, a lot more dynamic and flexible. And here, now you'll see that Claude is setting this up with Agent Browser. This is exactly what I would have done manually in the past. And so we'll let Claude set this up as well for us so that we can use the alias. And here you'll see Claude setting up this alias for us. But if you were to set this up yourself, you can actually set this up with any custom alias that you want. So let's say you just want your first name at your customdomain.com. You can set that up. Claude just chose hello here as well. And now we've set this alias with Gmail. So now we can send this with the alias as well as receive it from Gmail, all end to end. And with that, Claude now lets us send 1,000 emails per month for free with our custom domain. And let's go into Chrome now and see what that looks like. And so here, before we were blocked, but now we can send emails. But let's go and see this email that we sent here. We just sent this from our alias, we send it to our default email. And so we receive that now, and it now works end to end. And now let's test this out a little bit. With Googly, the CLI, there's another additional feature and functionality is that you can export and import specific profiles. And I've already exported and imported my other alias email. And so now we're gonna actually watch and see it send this email using this. So we'll see here that we sent an email from my original alias, and then here we have this new alias that got set up. I also asked Claude to respond back to that, and you can basically now give an agent your own inbox, manage your inbox, and here it is. You'll see that we responded back to that, and now you have your own custom domain. But let's do one additional test just so you can see about this as well. Let's say andytran.cc, and this time it's a different alias. And let's see what happens when we do this. And it looks like the email forwarding has worked. And we'll go back here, and now we'll see that we basically can send pretty much any alias with ImprovMX. Since we now set this up both with ImprovMX as well as SMTP2Go, I'll show you one other thing that we'll set up now that we've finished this one. So we move this to the side here. The last part we're gonna do is set up the Zoho inbox. And they also have a free plan tier too. So I'm gonna actually screenshot this so we can send this to Claude. And we're now gonna ask Claude to set this up. And we'll send this in here. And basically, I have another application that we talked about in a previous video that you can easily Command V shortcuts into the terminal with a screenshot. And so with that, I'm gonna now do another voice to text. Hey Claude, so that all works end to end now, and now I need your help to do a similar thing, but this time I want to set up this inbox, which is also free. Can you create a account in the exact same way that we just did? And this time I only want to set up the sending the email, not the receiving the email part. And I still want to keep the receiving the email with ImprovMX, but I want to set up another website, which is Zoho, to also send emails from Zoho and just test this out as well. Can you help me set that up with Agent Browser CDP as well? And then we'll do that option W so that we can do the voice to text, do the option W so we can do the voice to text again. And then we'll have Claude do the exact same thing with this Zoho Mail Forever Free plan. And here you'll see that now we've opened up another one. So let's open this up side by side, and I can kind of talk you through a little bit what's happening here. And I just want to give you a few different options to set up sending and receiving emails from your custom domain that you set up. And now we're going to set up another one. And this time, what we're going to set up is an actual inbox. So you can actually use this if you don't have Gmail, or you want to have both the sending and receiving email without any forwarding or sending from SMTP. But for this video, we're just going to set up the sending part so that you can see different options that you may have. here you'll see Claude also being able to solve CAPTCHA on your behalf as well. And then it'll also sign up for another account in the same way that we previously did. And here you can see another example of where you might have an email with OTP, and because we already gave Claude the access to our email from the CLI, we can now have Claude do that all end to end. And here now you'll see that we have this inbox, and we're only able to send emails from this inbox. We won't be able to receive any emails. It will actually be forwarded to our Gmail. But let's go back here as well. You can kind of see now that, for example, here, we sent this from Zoho. And then also we can see that we have this email that's sent here. And with this email sent here, we can also respond and reply. And from this, when you respond, reply, you can now select an alias as you see here. You can now respond back to that, and if we go back into that inbox, we'll be able to see that email with that alias. And you can go to your settings and set the default so that the default is whichever email you got that from. And here we've finished setting it up. Now we have Zoho, which is our inbox, which we can set it up to be both receiving and sending, or for this use case, not the ideal setup, but if you wanted to have one place to send and receive and remove ImprovMX, remove SMTP2Go completely from the equation, you can have it in a more simplified approach if you didn't mind not using Gmail, or if you use any other mail provider and you wanted a free service, you can use Zoho. But the issue to keep in mind, because this is a free service, it actually sometimes might end up in spam. And that's because here, as you'll see here, because we're on the forever free plan, it's only available in certain data centers that might not have good reputation from an IP perspective. And that's why sometimes it actually might still be good to pay if it's business critical. For most people, you don't need a new inbox. And so ImprovMX and SMPT2Go might be enough for you. So if we look at the ImprovMX website, they do provide a free service for one domain, including up to 25 aliases. The free service does not include SMTP, and that's why we're going to SMTP2Go. As you can see here, the price is free up to 1,000 emails a month. And once you want to move to a paid subscription, it's $15 a month. You can also get Google Workspace for, I believe, $9 a month. And so sometimes that might be easier if you're already in the Gmail ecosystem. But oftentimes, if you're paying, those are the simpler options. But in the case you're not paying, these are some of the best options that I found and I use. And then you'll see iCloud Plus, you get 50 gigs of storage, as well as your own iCloud private relay and custom email domains you can personalize with Apple Mail. With Spaceship, if you commit to a 2-year deal and you're doing this for a more professional use case, it could be as cheap as 80 cents per month if you sign up for a 2-year deal. And that also gives you a real inbox, which will do both receiving and sending emails and multiple aliases with that. And so in the same way, we think about some of our AI subscription plan where we start with a $20 plan, and then if we run out of limits, we upgrade. We can think about that in the same way with our custom domains, where let's say we use free until the work that we need to get done gets heavier. And so we might start with one custom address, and we'll have that two-way mail of forward in, send out with ImprovMX to go. And then only when we start to reach the limits of the emails that we send out per month or the aliases that we need, might we actually want to upgrade. Or once this becomes more than just a professional looking email where you actually want to start using emails for more business related things, you might actually need business critical support or services. And then that might make sense to upgrade to one of these. And so in the last video too, if we go back to the website that we set up, you can now enter in your contact here with that new email that you set up. And then you can send and receive emails on that. You can even have your agent work on that all on your behalf. And so we'll go back into that here. So you can think about this as one domain, one name, 3 different systems that works with that domain that you have for sending and receiving emails. One does it end to end, and the other two are the two paths that we talked about previously. Now that we've set up this address and this custom domain, as well as some of the other setup that we had with terminal and our skills and rules from the previous video, we can see how they all internet connects with each other to be able to do complex things in a more easy and straightforward way, where these things might not have been as accessible as it was previously. And you can take these patterns and apply for any additional use case or websites that you have. So with the custom domain, we can now send emails as well as receive emails from our custom domain.